Has everybody got the information, the preliminary information you need? And has everybody got your recording devices set and ready to go? Speak now or forever hold your peace, right? Okay. My name is Brent White, white just like the color. I'm a lieutenant with the Kentucky State Police, operations supervisor assigned to the Post 1 District, which is the 11 most western counties of Kentucky. I'm going to introduce some of our dignitaries and people you may or may see or may hear from today. Miss Heidi Moats, NTSB Air Safety Investigator. Doug, who is her counterpart, who wishes to remain nameless with NTSB beside her. Lyon County Judge Executive Wade White, Lyon County Sheriff Kent Murphy, Lyon County EMS Director Michael Wiggins. We also have Brooke Dixon with Edwards Police Department. Our coroner, Lyon County Coroner Ronnie Patton, has brought some information and just departed. I don't know if he'll be back or not, but the correct spelling of our NTSB Air Safety Investigator is Heidi is H-E-I-D-I, Moats is M-O-A-T-S. Okay, folks, we'll go ahead and get started. On January 2nd, 2015, the Kentucky State Police Emergency 911 Communications Center at Mayfield received a 911 call from a resident in Lyon County in the Suwannee community at approximately 6:34 p.m. on the 2nd, reporting that a 7-year-old child, female, had come to his residence and advised him that she was injured and that she had been in a plane crash. First responders were notified and responded to Larry Wilkins' residence at 196 Buckberry Trail. At or about the same time, we received information from the FAA Memphis Air Center that they had had a distress report from a pilot in the same area at around 5:55 to 5:56 p.m. The pilot reported an emergency, and it's my understanding that he previously, his destination was Mount Vernon, Illinois, and he was asking to divert to the nearest airport to make an emergency landing. He was reported to be approximately 7 miles east of Kentucky Dam Airport. Kentucky Dam Airport is a state park managed non-controlled airstrip near Calvert City, Kentucky. The FAA Memphis Air Center had not had any further contact between the time that their last contact, just before 6 p.m. Central Time, and the 911 call that we received just after 6:30 at 6:34 p.m. Troopers and emergency services personnel from Lyon County were dispatched to the scene. The first unit arrived. It was a Kentucky State Trooper at 6:41 p.m. along with Lyon County EMS at the Wilkins home. Another state trooper arrived at 6:58 p.m. and a search was immediately conducted or initiated at that time. The little girl was in shorts. She was in a short sleeve shirt. She had apparent minor injury to her, but she was otherwise calm when we got there. She'd been scratched up. She had possible broken bones to her wrist and arm. And she was coherent and able to give us information about the general direction in which she had come from. This young lady reported that she had been on an aircraft that was headed back to Southern Illinois from Florida, where they had vacationed with family, and that during the flight something went wrong, and that what she knew from that point was something to the effect that the plane was upside down. Her family on board was unresponsive. She utilized her non-injured arm and hand to free herself from the aircraft. There was a small fire at the site of the crash. She contemplated taking some type of stick to somehow possibly light that, use it as a torch to illuminate her path. This was abandoned because she was not able to find a item that would have done that for her. She began walking, and it's estimated that she walked for probably around 15 to 20 minutes, maybe more, in the wooded area before she was able to see a light at the residence of Mr. Wilkins. The path that she took the exact path is unknown, but the location of the aircraft that was later recovered is in about a 1,400 acre area that's in between Kentucky 1271, Kentucky 810 South, and Chestnut Oak Road. And it extends in a east to west location, that wooded area and a few fields that's primarily unpopulated, all the way to Lake Barkley, near the Eureka area of Lake Barkley. She walked until she navigated down trees. She navigated briars and bushes. She navigated significant depth ditch lines and was able to make it out to safety. And what she told us was to do so in order to receive assistance for her family. She was transported to an area hospital in Paducah, Kentucky, where she was treated, and it's our understanding she was subsequently released about 1:15. We dispatched a female Kentucky State Police trooper to be with her for her duration while she was in Kentucky, until she could be reunited with family. During the time between 6:58 p.m. and 8:50 p.m., first responders from this county, as well as numerous mutual aid agencies from surrounding counties, conducted an extensive search of the area looking for the wreckage. The aircraft was located by Lyon County Sheriff Kent Murphy, who summoned additional assistance from state police and other agencies to the crash site. Lyon County EMS personnel made it to the crash site and confirmed that the 4 remaining passengers of the aircraft were deceased. The mission then became one of a recovery and an investigatory from that point. Our efforts were consulted with the FAA and the NTSB, which has led us to today. I'm going to turn it over before I do turn it over to our NTSB delegation. I'm going to stop right here and not ask questions, but I'm going to stop right here and ask if anyone has to take a break before we do anything else. If you need a bathroom break or anything. All right? Seeing none, I'm going to ask Ms. Heidi Moats to come to the podium, then we'll take questions following that.
Good morning. As you stated, I am Heidi Moats, and I'm an air safety investigator with the National Transportation Safety Board. I first want to express my condolences to the family members of the victims on board of the airplane. And secondly, I would like to express my gratitude to all the local and state authorities who have helped us with this investigation. Today we are here to document facts and circumstances, and we will not be looking at probable causes, and we will not be discussing probable cause. So on January 2nd, about 6 p.m., a Piper PA-34, November 81291, impacted trees and terrain just west of the Kentucky Dam State Airport. There were 5 occupants on board. 4 of them were fatally injured, and 1 incurred serious injury. Today is our first day on scene, and we will be gathering the perishable evidence and documenting the accident site. Also, the salvage facility has arrived, and they are working right now to remove the airplane from the accident site. Once we remove the airplane, we will take it to their facility a little bit farther south of here, and we will thoroughly examine the airframe and the engine of the airplane. After this initial phase of the on-scene investigation, we will issue a preliminary report in about 10 days, and that preliminary report can be found on the NTSB website, which is www.ntsb.gov. As we continue to gather the facts, we will look into the man, the machine, and the environment, and put together a factual report that will be issued in about a year. After that, that report will be sent to the NTSB 5-member safety board, and from there they will issue the probable cause. We have a few moments to take a couple questions. So,
Will you be talking to the little girl about what happened as part of your investigation?
we are going to try and make contact with her. We're going to talk to her family first and then try and make contact with her soon.
We understand that she was the only passenger on the plane that was in a rear-facing seat. Is that correct?
That is something we're going to look into. We're going to do a survivability factor study on this investigation, and we will definitely look into that.
What steps do you take as far as your investigation? Will come and walk us through what you're going to be doing between now and whenever you're done with your
Like I said, we're going to be documenting the on-scene evidence right now, taking pictures, gathering the perishable evidence. Once we take the airplane back to the salvage facility, we'll be going more in-depth investigation into the airframe and looking to make sure everything was working all right and take a better look at the engines. After that, we'll get the weather data, air traffic control data, many more other pieces of information, and put them together into that factual report that will be issued in about a year's time.
Just a real quick follow-up. What is perishable evidence on a plane like that?
It could be ground scars, marks on the trees, fuel, any type of liquid that could come out of the airplane, stuff like that.
How does it change or help your investigation having someone who survived?
Having someone that is a witness always helps us in the investigation. It gives us kind of a storyline, and it's helpful in any situation.
What time did the plane take off from Tallahassee? You understand it started in Key West, refueled in Tallahassee, then ended up here. What time did it take off?
I don't have the exact time, but when we do look at that air traffic control data, we will have that. Any other?
Part of the wing was on fire. Is that correct?
There is evidence of a post-impact fire, and we will look at that further. I spent a couple hours, not even a couple hours, on scene this morning, and that's where I'm headed back to do. I have time for one more question.
Your father was the pilot. How many flight hours did you have?
Again, I don't know that. We have not been able to find his logbook yet, but it is something we will look into in the future.
Ma'am, I know you deal a lot with facts, and I know you can't say a lot at this point. However, as an NTSB investigator, how remarkable is it that this girl survived?
She is one remarkable young lady.
Just a quick timeline question. Did you expect to have the aircraft removed from the scene by the end of the day today?
That is what we're shooting for. We're trying to get the aircraft out of there today. All right, that's it for me. Thank you guys for being here. And if you have any further questions, the NTSB Public Affairs Office will take them. And I have their phone number if you guys would like it. And it is 202-314-6100. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Moats, and we appreciate that very much. I've been asked some questions concerning the formality. Obviously, when it's a multi-jurisdictional investigation, what does one group do versus the other one? As far as from the state police perspective, our investigation from this point forward deals with the individual deaths of the decedents that were on board the aircraft. The decedents' bodies were removed with the assistance of the first responders in coordination with the coroner's office in both NTSB and FAA on the night that it was recovered. And from that point, the bodies were removed to the Kentucky State Medical Examiner's Office in Louisville, Kentucky, where a postmortem examination and/or medical review of the individual bodies was completed. I can confirm that there was a postmortem examination completed on the father, who was the pilot of the aircraft, pursuant to a normal protocol. And while I believe that a full postmortem was done on all of the occupants, I can't verify that at this time. So I've been asked that question this morning, and I can't verify it, but I do believe that the Kentucky State Medical Examiner's Office did conduct a full postmortem exam on all of the decedents. The bodies, once the full identifications are made on all of our victims, the bodies will be released and may have, by this time, back to their families or their designees and transported back to the Nashville, Illinois area, it's my understanding. What questions do you have from the State Police?
Lieutenant, can you or anybody here speak to when you guys arrived at the crash scene, were the occupants in the plane strapped in? Were they still in the seatbelts? Were they still inside the plane?
You okay with me answering that question? The occupants that I could observe did appear to be secured by restraints. However, I was not able we were not able to determine that of the pilot at the time. That information can be obtained, but we could not tell at the time regarding the pilot's condition.
Was he still in the plane?
Yes, all the occupants were still within the aircraft.
Lieutenant White, I understand the plane may have left Key West, Florida earlier before it reached Ewell in Tallahassee. Do you have any idea on the time of that?
I do not have a timeline on that particular. The family had posted some photographs on the trip down. I did not see anything that was posted on the return trip, but it was our information in speaking with the family that the family members of the decedents that they had stopped at Tallahassee for whatever reason and then came from there. But they had been visiting a family member in the Key West area, in the Keys area, and that was the purpose of the trip, it was my understanding.
Did you personally get a chance to talk to them?
I'm sorry?
Did you personally get a chance to
Yes, sir. I was the second police officer on the scene, and I did get to talk to her briefly.
What was her demeanor?
Amazingly calm. Mr. Wilkins had said she was very shook up when she got to the house, but he had already began attending to her injuries with a washcloth and getting her cleaned up. But I was literally just struck by how calm that she was able to, and the ability for her to give us information. She was obviously distraught, but probably in shock. But she was able to amazingly give us very detailed information at that time.
Do you think she realized the magnitude of what happened?
I think so, because she indicated to us that she believed that her family was deceased, but that she hoped that they were just sleeping.
Did she say specifically how she was able to find help?
Yes, after trying to raise her family and get them to communicate with her, and I think even touching some of them as she was coming out of the aircraft. After she was able to, she told us she was able to get out using her uninjured limb, and in doing so, she did not see any light at all of the house. She thought about, as I've already stated, trying to use a stick somehow. Obviously, the woods was damp; it was misting. That wasn't successful, so she just started walking to find help, and she could not see any lights at all until she got out of the wooded area that she'd been wandering in for probably a considerable amount of time. And then once she saw the street light or a light there by Mr. Wilkins's home, that's what that was the direction that she headed to.
Have y'all had a chance to talk to the FAA tower, the people in Memphis the pilot communicated to get an idea of what his demeanor was or his degree of concern at that point?
All I can tell you, and I don't want to compromise anything that they, because that certainly would be a part of their investigation. What was reported to us by Memphis Center was that the pilot had reported, I believe that he was on an instrument flight plan, and that he had requested to deviate off that to after declaring an emergency on board. And I won't be talking about the specifics of what emergency he declared, because that comes through with their investigation. But he declared the emergency, requested the airport. They provided him that closest information for that. They were able to get his elevation. They were able to, which was at last contact, I think was about 1,800 feet. And beyond that, that was pretty much all they advised us, and they weren't able to give us an interpretation of his coherency or whether he was excited or not. I'm sure he was, but these pilots are, they're professionals and they train for emergency situations. So we didn't get any additional information other than that.
Ms. Moats, can you speak to what the nature of the emergency he radioed in?
I have not heard it yet. We have air traffic control investigators back in headquarters, and they're definitely looking into that.
If there are no other questions, we'll go ahead and conclude this portion. I also have the public affairs officer contact for NTSB. If you'd like to see me, we can get that to you, and be happy to help you. Some of you have requested to actually be able to photograph the scene, and again, that is politely declined at this point pursuant to the request of the federal agencies investigating it. If that changes at any point, we'll let you know, but it is our understanding that as this aircraft is salvaged and recovered from its current location, it will be brought out toward the roadway on Kentucky 810 to be placed on the trucks and trailers that you see there now. That may be photo opportunities and other opportunities for you all as media outlets to get at that time. But other than that, we do not have a timeline on how long that will take, if that extends into the nighttime or not. But the goal is to do that today. It's my understanding, correct?
Let's go.
Yes, sir.
Did Sailor explain, upon impact, did she brace herself? Did she do anything differently, obviously, than the others? Did she explain that at all?
And again, I don't want to compromise her statements because they do not have her full statement about. I can tell you what she said afterwards and things of that nature, but I would prefer to kind of stay away from that. But I can tell you that there was some evidence at the scene, without going into specifics, that indicated to me, and I've been flying with our state police personnel for 20-something, about 18, 20 years, and so there was evidence to me that indicated that they were possibly bracing for a crash landing or some type of emergency landing. Yes, Al.
Question, I don't know, this type of plane obviously is probably not a black box or anything like that. Is there any type of way to determine or see what the instruments were doing at the time it went down? Can you guys look at that through your investigation or not? Or
We will definitely document what we can from the instrument panel, but as of right now, we haven't even been able to get inside the aircraft yet.
a plane this small, there's no recording device or anything that would be even associated with that, I take it, right?
We have to look into it.
Were you able to smell fuel there at the site? Was there fuel there?
A little smell, but again, it's something we're going to document when we move it.
The fuel smell was extremely more pungent at the night when we got to the crash scene than it is today. Yeah, so there was a fuel smell there.
Can you describe the little girl's clothing? It was 38 degrees.
It's 38 degrees. She was, as Mr. Wilkins has said, she was dressed for Florida. She had on shorts. She did not have on shoes. She had on it was a short sleeve shirt, but I cannot remember if it was even, it may have been like a tank top type shirt, but I think it was more of a tee type shirt. It was drizzling outside. It was a low ceiling that night. We had some weather moving in from the southern Illinois area, and I think it was coming out of the southeast. Winds were about 7 miles an hour when we got there. Visibility, even for us on the ground, was a little difficult because when you have that precipitation, that light precipitation, when you're shining a flashlight, if I don't have anything to impede that light, then I can see a long distance with that light. But when we have precipitation falling, it proceeds, and impedes it to where it can't penetrate it. So that also made our search efforts hampered that night. But she didn't have very much clothing on at all, and it looked like she'd been through a briar patch.
She did have a broken wrist.
It's my understanding from my female trooper who was at the hospital that she did have a broken bone, at least one, around her wrist and arm area, yes.
Do you know which one?
I cannot recall. I apologize, Bobby.
Lieutenant, with your experience flying, as you said, and covering these sorts of things, is it unusual for a plane with fuel to crash and not burn? In other words, was she lucky that plane didn't burn more?
I really can't comment on that because I've never been in a crash, but thank the Lord. But I've been in some incidents where we hit the ground hard, but I really can't say. I mean, it appeared to me that the fact that when the aircraft encountered timber, trees, for lack of better words, and impacted that possibly could have been the result of the. I would agree with the assessment that the fire was post-crash and not in air. But that's for the investigators to determine.
Mitch, the coroner was here earlier.
Yes, sir.
Anything unusual about his report, or just what he heard back, or just?
No, not at this. No, there was nothing abnormal from the preliminary that we've received.
Ms. Moats, based off of the evidence that you have right now, do you guys feel confident that you can come to a definitive conclusion as to what caused the crash?
We're going to try our best and document everything we can and go from there.
It's very early, folks. I mean, it really is.
How many investigators do y'all have up there?
We have about 40 regional investigators.
40 regional investigators? How many do you have at the scene, on scene? I think is what he's asking.
At the scene, about 6.
6.
There is one thing that might have been a point of confusion earlier. I think that this location is actually east of Kentucky Dam Airport, not west. And I think we said it both ways, but I think it's actually east of Kentucky Dam Airport. Is that correct? Yeah, that would be right. Yeah.
Yeah, the accident.
The actual crash site. Yes, or accident site.
The little girl back home.
She was, and forgive me, it may have been a stepsister, but there was an adult family member that came and met with Kentucky Department of Social our Cabinet for Families and Children, Department of Social Services personnel that we also dispatched to the hospital to provide services to this little girl and reunite her with her, surviving family members, and our trooper that was there. They reunited her, I think, a little after midnight, thereabout, and then they were released. Or somewhere around midnight, and then they were released. She was released, I think, from the hospital about 1:15 Central Time the following morning.
Can you go into a little bit more detail about how she was able to find help? People obviously know that her surviving a plane crash was a miracle in and of itself, but to find help in what you mentioned was a 1,200-acre area where there's not a lot of people, can you explain just the unlikelihood of that?
Well, there's houses to the north and the south of this, what I would call just a large tract of land that goes from 810 south all the way to Lake Barkley. And any direction that she went, eventually, unless she went toward the lake, which was the opposite direction of the way she went, if she actually probably went the best route she could have gone. It was probably not the easiest route by any means, but, say what you want to, but they're at the scene we were talking about that being some divine intervention there, because she absolutely went to probably the nearest house that she could have, but it was still a considerable feat for her to do that.
Is it within reason to say that she might have been out there all night? Had she not gone in the right direction?
Yes, I don't. There's no evidence to suggest that she went from point A to point B straight to this man's house. We believe that she possibly wandered in the woods for quite some time before she was able to at least see through. This was a ridge line that extends and begins this from Kentucky 810 South back toward the lake. And this is a ridge line that has been timbered out in 2009, subsequent to the ice storm that we experienced in this region then. And so then it kind of drops off into ravines and valleys between that. That's typical of the geography of this area around what parallels the Cumberland River Basin, which is now, after it was dammed up by the Corps of Engineers, is Barkley Lake, or Lake Barkley. So that terrain there was, for her to be able to get where she where she started from where she's from was actually pretty close, but she still had to navigate that. It's pretty extensive.
Excuse me, we gotta get going.
Okay. We're going to excuse them so they can get back to the scene. If you have any other questions, we'll be here for just a little while, probably about 15 more minutes as far as the state police and the local county officials, and then we'll probably be heading back to our various assignments as well. Okay? Thank you.